I contracted COVID-19 while acting in my official capacity as an employee. Since then, I have had to foot my own medical bill. What can I do? Hi guys, this is Ask a Lawyer segment by Crime Sipoa. This is Praxedes Kahega, an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. I'm from MMS Advocates LLP. Well, we are here talking about employment, and today we are narrowing down on remuneration. It's always about the money when we work. So we are here to talk more, to answer specific questions that you've had concerning remuneration. But however, we have posted some content on our website and also our YouTube channel, so you can as well visit there for more information. But for now, let's deal with your questions. My boss gives me tasks that are outside my job description and generally overworks me with no off days, for very little pay. He never gives me incentives or overtime pay. What should I do? Normally, there are, there are remuneration orders that are supposed to be released every year. Now, the remuneration orders, they give the minimum amount payable to every job description. So when you go through that, it clearly tells you how much you should be earning as basic pay. And then based on whether you work overtime or not, you're paid overtime pay. And then now the rest of the allowances are debatable between you and your employer. But what is mandatory is your basic pay and your house allowance. And should you work overtime, that's also mandatory. Should you work on holidays, you're supposed to be paid. And should you work past the normal working hours, remember last time we were talking about 42 hours. In case you work past 42 hours a week, you are entitled to the extra pay for that particular period of time. Now, what happens in this particular case? There's a job description. Well, some of us sign contracts that clearly set out what you need to do, but some of us don't. But in that case, as you know, when you start working, of course, there's what you constantly do. Remember last time when we were talking about implied contracts. For instance, if I'm a security guard, I'm supposed to be manning premises. I'm not supposed to be cleaning the premises. Then I realized that, well, for the past 2 weeks, I've been asked to clean the premises. That's not my JD. Rather, that's not my job description. What should I do? Well, you go back to the table with your boss and get it discussed. Yeah, that's the only way you can get it done, because there's a job description, but somebody is clearly not observing it. So you go back to the table and discuss, well, I'm now doing this and it's extra. So either I stop or you add some money to cover up for what I'm doing. But now most circumstances, this doesn't go well. It will create some bad blood. So it comes back to you as an employee. Can you stand it? But the fact that it doesn't go well does not mean you can't give it a try. Just give it a try. Go talk to him or her. Just get it negotiated. In case you fail to get to an amicable settlement, and depending on how bad it is on you, you can choose to resign. Or if you can stand it during the employment period, then wait till the end and claim overtime. As earlier discussed, you know, overtime is claimable at the end of your employment contract. The next question is, my boss tends to delay my pay and sometimes does not pay me in full. He insists that he will pay me all my arrears and will start paying me promptly as soon as business picks up. What are my legal rights and entitlement in this matter? Well, you work, you get paid. Salary is not negotiable for as long as we agreed when we started working that this is your pay. And for as long as the full pay is not paid, it now becomes a debt that you need to claim for. Yeah, most of us would think that just like overtime, if I've worked for over 10 years and this is a claim under the contract, I can therefore only claim 3 years. After 3 years have lapsed, I can't claim for it. No, the Employment Act is very clear. It says that for as long as the kind of injury or the damage that is happening is of a continuing nature, then the time limit starts running when that damage ends. So in this case, the damage is unpaid salary, the damage is overtime. It stops when the employment ends, right? Or it stops the day your boss starts paying you well. So the day your boss starts paying you well, or the employment contract ends, you claim for all that. Again, as I said earlier concerning the overworking, if it is something you can stand, you know, we go to work so that we get paid and we are able to cater for our needs. So if it is something you can't bear, for instance, going to work, you've not been paid, so therefore transport is even an issue. If it is such a burden, then you're entitled to resign and immediately claim. Or you can even claim, there are circumstances where some employees have actually gone to court to claim for unpaid salaries while they are still employed. And yes, they are awarded the whatever they claim for, and the employer is actually compelled to pay. But as I had said earlier, yes, the courts will award you what you want because you are entitled to it. But when you come back home to work, well, it's not such a comfortable environment depending on who you work for. The next question is, I have been working for a long time, and according to company policy and practice, I'm due for a pay rise or promotion, but have received neither. How do I lay legal claim to this? Same thing, write to your boss, notify them of the same. If the policy is actually written, refer to it. If they are not able to do anything about it at that time, or if they don't respond, you can choose to either go to court or also quit. Yeah, because courts are there to enforce contracts. Yeah, for as long as contracts were signed willingly, courts are there to enforce. They cannot rewrite, but they can enforce. So the next question is, I contracted COVID-19 while acting in my official capacity as an employee. Since then, I have had to foot my own medical bill, and my employer has not given any financial assistance in the matter. What can I do? Now, the only statutory obligation, that is the only mandatory obligation that your employer has, is to ensure that you pay for your NHIF. For as long as they deduct and pay, or you pay on your own, that's the only obligation that your employer has. Beyond that, it's upon them to decide. Well, if they're a good boss, they'll pay for you. They'll come in, but they are not compelled, they are not forced, they are not mandated to do it. So unfortunately, in this case, well, you talk to your boss nicely. If they agree to come in and help a bit, fine. If they don't, then there's nothing much you can do about it. On to the next question. My boss has failed to pay me my salary for the month of June. That is 17,500 shillings. After informing him about some bills due at the hotel, he sent me 8,000 shillings that I used to pay the bills. He then informed me that that was part of my salary, which he failed to communicate when sending the money. I handed in my resignation and took 5,700 shillings out of the register to pay myself. This is for the register is meant for petty cash. So is there any action I can take to recover my balance? Well, yes, there is. Thing is, when there is, in a work environment, of course, there ought to be communication. If clearly in this case, this person was maybe in charge of making sure the bills were paid, and money was sent to them without clearly stating what the purpose for the money was, and she used the money for work purposes. So whatever is left, if she was withholding some money for work purposes, she can reimburse herself. Yeah, because reimbursement is something that is common to everyone and even allowable under the law, so long as it is done in a transparent manner. So for as long as your transactions can be traced, your transactions can be, you can account for your actions, it is fine. You can go ahead and pay, but then also you can claim for the balance of your salary because you have already worked. Yes, so the last question for today is, I work in a religious facility and my employer makes tithe deductions from my pay that I did not expressly consent to every month, and insists that it is considered an implied term in the contract for all the employees within the facility. What are my rights in this matter? Tithe is not statutory. Tithe is biblical. The employment laws in Kenya are very clear. Only statutory deductions are allowed. NHIF, NSSF, payee, that is tax, your tax. And if at all you had any loans to pay for, which you needed to have informed your employer and the deductions are made, well, that's allowable. When it comes to tithe, that's a personal decision. The employer is not to decide on what to deduct from your salary unless it is expressly agreed upon by both parties. Well, if I may talk about the biblical sense of it, tithe is a decision you as an employee need to make, and you need to decide where to tithe it, because the employer, or rather the Bible even doesn't take away your will to tithe. It only tells you of the consequences of not tithing. So your employer has no right to deduct anything, especially in this case, terming it as an implied term of the contract. It is not right. And you can actually seek to recover all the deductions that have been deducted in the name of tithe, and tithe them at the proper place, because I believe for those of us who understand, the Bible is clear on where to tithe. You know, the fact that I work in this religious facility, it doesn't mean that I subscribe to their practices, yeah, and therefore you are not allowed to compel me to behave like you. You are not allowed to compel me. We have freedom to belong to any form of religion that we do wish. So it is wrong. In fact, it infringes on my constitutional rights when my boss tries to force their religion on me. So you can claim for the tithe deductions, or rather the deductions that have been made to your salary in the name of tithe. Thank you so much for today. As earlier said, you can ask us additional questions on our website or on Ask a Lawyer by Crime Sipoa. See you next time.